All right, coming up next is John Brady, the president of Continental Brewery. John, welcome to the stage. There's your clicker, and your timer's down there.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm John, and my love of history and historic restoration got me into brewing. My brew house is 338 years old. It was deeded by William Penn. At its peak, do I need this? Oh, sorry. Thank you. At its peak, it was a 26-barrel brew house. It brewed throughout the Revolutionary War. It was the hub of a malt house, a mill house, and it's located 20 miles north of Philly on the Delaware River. Ben Franklin printed Continental currency in our hop yard, our old hop yard. Our brewers were directly involved with the Revolution. The Battle of the Kegs was a real battle. You can look it up. Our brewer was involved with that as well. In 1796, it was converted to a residence, and the brewery history went away. But we had some famous military figures living there. It fell into disrepair in the 20th century. I bought it, I restored it, I rescued it, I brought its story back to life, and instead of putting an historical marker on it, I said, let's bring this back to its original roots. So it's registered on the National Register of Historic Places right now. Our beer, that's an actual ad from one of our brewers, William Ennis, who brewed at our site throughout the Revolution, and he made two good beers, a strong beer and a table ale. The strong beer was preferred by the sea captains who would come up to the wharf, our neighboring wharf, for their long voyages. The table beer was the beer for households, that everyday use. In colonial America, water supplies were horrible. So in order to hydrate, you needed a low-alcohol beer. That's what the judges are drinking now. It's a 2.1 ABV. And that's an actual quote by one of our brewers, beer strengthens the arm of the laborer. So our vision is really to create a place that inspires, and by extension, a beer that inspires. And what you're looking at is the 17th century ship beams that line our brewhouse's ceiling, the actual brewhouse door, the tens of thousands of wooden barrels rolled through down to the wharf. And that's our brewer, Rich Wagner, who is a renowned colonial brewer, beer historian, and author. Right now, we've just got one barrel. We're doing tours and tastings. We look to expand in 2017. We've got room for about 100 oak barrels in our basement. Our strengths and weaknesses. Nobody has an older brew house than us. Nobody has more pure American history than us, and we think that's a pretty durable competitive advantage. Our site is on the waterfront. That view there is what happens that's the view outside our brewhouse front door. And we're located 25 miles north of Philadelphia, which is self-proclaimed as America's beer city. Our weaknesses, we have a limited ton capacity. We don't want to rip up the architectural integrity of our brewhouse and put in 26 barrels like the old days, so we've got a challenge there. Our beers are in our early stages. Those are the first batches that you've had there. And I think I'm about to get gonged. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take the clicker. Gong returns. So you got the strengths and weaknesses up there. Obviously, one that sticks out to me is just, you said, sort of the limited capacity. What do you think their ability is to scale a brand like this, especially one that's 2% alcohol, probably a bit challenging for the craft consumer today to wrap their head around such a low ABV beer, even though Session is popular. What do you guys think of those two challenges ahead for this brand?
I don't know. As part of the portfolio, a 2.1% beer, I think, is a nice compliment only because it adds to your story. Like, it helps tell the story. You have a really rich story, so I think that's good. I don't see it being, a leader in the portfolio, but I think that it does help. So it's interesting to me. I don't immediately know what a table ale is, and I want to know a little bit more about it. Definitely challenges with expansion, but I don't think that really puts you out of the running either, because there are plenty of folks who have tap rooms and then production facilities. So right. That I think is you can grow from that. It's I'm curious about the branding a little bit because there's the actual bottle label and then there's the Continental Brewery logo. So I'm curious, like, which you choose when.
That is a disconnect. Our
Yeah.
logo with the house. If you scroll back to the first slide, that's our branding.
Okay.
So our labels are horrible.
Awesome.
And Michael, obviously a unique story here. Certainly, like he said, one of the more authentic ones. It's very rooted in history. Is that something that plays nowadays, or are consumers, kind of beyond the I want to know about what was happening in the 1800s and I just want what's new?
I think as long as you can bring it forward to especially younger drinkers today as just a cool thing. I wouldn't expect them to care too much about the details of all that history, but if you can present it in a cool visual way, and this slide right here really grabbed my interest, just the letter forms that you're looking at, like it's very, very unique in the world, and it looks old, but it also looks fresh at the same time. I mean, you could hang that on a sign outside of a shop in Brooklyn, and it would look great at home today. It's got that sort of timeless kind of quality to it that I think is really attractive. So I see a lot of strength, and I see a lot of tools to play with visually for the brand overall. And actually, I love some of the language of it too. Like Continental Table Ale is just kind of it's a really interesting thing to read on a beer label. I do think that there's a chance for you to go a little bit more upscale with the materials and quality of it, because you've got some really nice sort of letter forms on here that looks like it's going to be old-timey and there's going to be a texture, but then it's just kind of a cheap sticker. That's kind of a disconnect for me. I would expect it to be a little bit more upscale if it's bringing some of those elements through.
Agreed. Yes.
Whereabouts are you in terms of your production? How far along are you?
So, for historical purposes, that is the first batch brewed in our brew house in over 200 years.
Wow.
We're drinking it. So, from a quality standpoint, we obviously have a few levels to progress.
So still very early stages.
Yes.
And how was the beer, guys?
I liked it. You got me at table beer. I'm a big fan of table beers,
Yep.
but
Okay.
mostly the ones from, the ones I get in France and Belgium. The problem with having the table beer is it's got for being 2.1, it's got to have something to stand out to set it apart from something that's going to be 5%, because people are going to gravitate towards that 5%. This is a little thin on the mouthfeel. You probably want to boost that up and have some sort of, even if it was like a cool recipe from the 1600s, you'd have a little easier sell on that. But I do like it. I think it's a good idea.
I'd even thinking about the water profile a little bit of this one. Give it a little more minerality,
Yeah.
a little chalkiness in there would go a long way without having to do anything on the hop side to
Yeah.
make it more bitter.
Huh?
Because
Great
otherwise,
feedback.
a 2.1 beer that drinks this nice that'd be in my fridge, no problem.
Yeah.
Awesome.
As long as it's the right price point, you got it for sure.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, that's all the time. Certainly a lot to build off of. Great job. Great job. Hey there. If you're enjoying our coverage of the craft beer business, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel or watching some more of our great content already uploaded.